What happens when powerful executives forget they're being watched? Today we're analyzing some of the most shocking cases where CEOs and business leaders were caught on camera making decisions that destroyed their careers in seconds, from billionaires caught in embarrassing moments to corporate leaders whose character was exposed when they thought no one was looking. These real cases show us how quickly reputations can crumble in the digital age. The psychology of power is fascinating and dangerous. When people reach the top of corporate hierarchies, something fundamental can shift in their thinking. They begin to believe different rules apply to them. They start making decisions that would seem unthinkable to most people. And in our connected world, where cameras are everywhere and social media spreads information instantly, these moments of poor judgment don't stay private. Let's examine what really happens when corporate accountability meets viral culture, and what these cases teach us about leadership, ethics, and human nature. Corporate scandals follow a predictable pattern. It starts with a moment of poor judgment, usually captured on video or documented in some way. The footage or evidence leaks online, and within hours, millions of people have seen it. Social media explodes with outrage, memes, and demands for accountability. The company's stock price plummets, employees distance themselves, and the board faces impossible pressure. But here's what's really interesting. These aren't usually calculated crimes or massive fraud schemes. They're often small, petty moments that reveal character. A billionaire CEO being rude to service staff, an executive cutting in line or treating employees poorly, a leader showing their true colors when they think no one important is watching. These moments matter because they shatter the carefully constructed public image that corporations spend millions creating. When people see a CEO acting entitled or cruel in a casual moment, it undermines everything the company claims to stand for. We live in what scholars call a digital panopticon, a world where anyone could be watching and recording at any time. This creates a fascinating dynamic for people in power. They know they should always be on and representing their brand, but human nature means they inevitably let their guard down. The most damaging scandals happen when executives forget about this reality. They act as if they're in private when they're actually in public. They assume their status protects them from consequences. They underestimate how quickly and far bad behavior can spread in the digital age. Corporate leaders used to worry about newspaper reporters or television cameras. Now they have to consider that every employee, customer, and bystander has a recording device and instant access to global audiences. The rules of accountability have fundamentally changed. One of the most instructive patterns in corporate scandals is what psychologists call the entitlement trap. As executives gain more power and wealth, they often begin to see normal social rules as optional. They justify small ethical violations by pointing to their success or contributions. It starts small. Maybe they park in handicapped spaces because they're too busy to find regular parking. They cut lines because their time is more valuable. They speak rudely to staff because their stress levels are unprecedented. Each small violation makes the next one easier to justify. What makes this particularly dangerous is that entitled behavior often goes unchallenged for years. Employees are afraid to speak up. boards are reluctant to confront successful CEOs. The lack of immediate consequences reinforces the belief that different rules apply. Then comes the moment when this behavior is caught on camera and shared with the world. Suddenly, millions of people see what employees and close contacts have been experiencing for years. The contrast between the public image and private behavior creates explosive outrage. Social media has created a new form of corporate accountability that operates faster and more powerfully than traditional mechanisms. When corporate misconduct goes viral, the consequences are swift and severe. Traditional accountability systems, boards of directors, regulatory agencies, shareholder votes operate slowly. They require investigation, deliberation, and formal processes. Viral accountability operates in real time. Within hours, a CEO can go from respected leader to global pariah. This creates both opportunities and dangers. On one hand, it holds powerful people accountable for behavior that might have been ignored in previous eras. Executives can no longer assume they can treat people poorly without consequences. On the other hand, viral outrage can sometimes be disproportionate or based on incomplete information. The most effective form of accountability combines both: viral attention that brings issues to light, followed by formal investigation and appropriate consequences. When scandals break, corporations typically follow a predictable playbook. First comes denial or downplaying. It was taken out of context. This doesn't represent our values. We're investigating the matter. Next comes the limited apology. They apologize for any offense caused rather than for the actual behavior. They emphasize their commitment to diversity, respect, and corporate values while avoiding specific acknowledgement of wrongdoing. If the pressure continues, they progress to more substantive responses. Sensitivity training for leadership, donations to relevant causes. Sometimes executive departures to pursue other opportunities. The most successful responses happen when companies move quickly to the substantive phase. They acknowledge the problem clearly, take concrete action to address it, and demonstrate genuine change. The companies that suffer most are those that get stuck in denial and limited apologies while public outrage builds. While we often focus on stock prices and corporate consequences, these scandals have profound human costs. Employees who spoke up often face retaliation or career damage. Families of executives are thrust into unwanted public scrutiny. Lower-level workers may lose jobs when companies downsize in response to reputation damage. The most tragic cases involve executives who seem genuinely surprised by the consequences of their actions. They've been operating in environments where their behavior was normalized or even rewarded. When faced with global outrage, they often appear confused and defensive rather than apologetic. This highlights the importance of corporate cultures that encourage ethical behavior at all levels. Organizations that regularly challenge power, welcome dissent, and maintain high standards for everyone are less likely to produce leaders who make these catastrophic errors in judgment. What can current and future leaders learn from these cases? First, character matters more than competence in the long run. Technical skills and business acumen can be learned and improved. Character flaws, especially those that become ingrained habits, are much harder to change. Second, consistency is crucial. Leaders are always being watched and evaluated, even in casual moments. The way someone treats a server, talks to security guards, or handles minor frustrations reveals their true character. Third, accountability systems only work if they're used. Companies need cultures where people feel safe speaking up about problematic behavior, regardless of hierarchy. Boards need to take character concerns seriously, not just financial performance. Finally, the digital age requires a new understanding of privacy and public behavior. There is no off the record anymore. Every interaction could potentially become public. Leaders who understand this and behave accordingly are much less likely to face career-ending scandals. These corporate scandals reflect broader questions about power, privilege, and accountability in society. They force us to examine how we structure organizations, what behavior we're willing to tolerate from successful people, and how new technologies change the dynamics of power. The democratizing effect of viral accountability is profound. It means that ordinary employees, customers, and citizens now have the power to hold executives accountable in ways that were previously impossible. This shift is still playing out, and its long-term effects on corporate culture and leadership behavior are yet to be fully understood. What's clear is that the old model, where powerful people could behave differently in private than in public, is no longer sustainable. The new reality requires authentic leadership, consistent character, and genuine respect for all people, regardless of status or position. The goal isn't to create a world where leaders live in constant fear of being recorded and judged. The goal is to create organizations and societies where ethical behavior is so ingrained that being recorded isn't a concern. The best leaders understand that their role extends beyond generating profits or achieving goals. They're modeling behavior, setting cultural standards, and influencing how thousands of people think about work, respect, and human dignity. When we see corporate scandals unfold, we're not just watching individual failures. We're seeing the results of systems, cultures, and incentives that either encourage or discourage ethical behavior. The real lesson isn't about avoiding cameras or managing public relations. It's about building organizations where doing the right thing is natural, expected, and rewarded. In our hyper-connected world, character isn't just a nice-to-have quality for leaders. It's a business necessity. The companies that understand this and build it into their DNA will thrive. Those that don't will continue to provide cautionary tales about what happens when power operates without accountability. The choice, as always, is ours to make. We can create organizations that bring out the best in people, or we can accept systems that enable and excuse the worst. The viral accountability of the digital age simply makes the consequences of that choice impossible to ignore. What do you think? Are these new forms of accountability making corporate leaders more ethical or just more careful about being caught? The answer might determine what kind of business culture we build for the future.